And now, the general weather around Alaska.
Hello and welcome to Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan coming to you from the National Weather Service on this Monday, April 22nd, Earth Day 2024. And if you'd like additional weather information on top of what I give you in this YouTube video, you can go to weather.gov. That is the National Weather Service's online presence. It'll bring you to a map of the continental U.S. with a Hawaii and Alaska to the lower left, and then tabs here to click on for the territories. And most importantly, it allows you to check up on the weather anywhere in the country. Very detailed forecast for that location. You can check up on friends and family and see what the weather's doing in their location. Of note, this Monday afternoon, we have frost advisories and freeze warnings for areas of the mid-Atlantic back through the central Appalachians. Red flag warnings for critical fire weather conditions. That means breezy conditions with low humidity and warm temperatures over lower Michigan and back across the Dakotas into eastern Montana, as well as parts of Colorado and into Wyoming. Not yet fire weather season here for Alaska. It's getting real close. We're still waiting for the rivers to break up, and we're still dealing with a pretty good area of low pressure out across the Bering Sea with a front that'll be working its way eastward and northeastward tonight, impacting the Aleutians and Pribilov Islands. It's going to bring gale force winds with some storm force gusts along with snow or a mix of snow rain. And that'll be pushing into the Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta coastlines, as well as up towards St. Lawrence as we go through the day Tuesday. And coming up on Tuesday as well, we have the full pink moon of April, and that'll occur later tomorrow afternoon. Overall, though, we're going to see a little more progressive weather pattern. Low pressures are going to be moving across the Bering or up into the Gulf as we go up through the end of the month into the beginning of May, and maybe a little warmer temperatures at times over southern Alaska, with a chance of cooler than normal temperatures persisting across the far north, especially along the Arctic coast and North Slope. But looking at some of the FAA webcams this afternoon, new exit up there along near the Arctic coast, partly sunny, cold, only 0 as of 2 o'clock in the afternoon. New exit had the state's low temperature this morning at 13 below 0, and we do have a pocket of colder air up there in the far north. As you get south of the Brooks Range, Beaver there to the north of Fairbanks, mostly sunny 45. You can see the Yukon River. The ice has not broken up there yet. We're still waiting on that to happen, and right now it looks like there'll likely be a delay in the overall breakup season by maybe 1 to 3 days in many locations. So we're looking at some point here in early May. And then St. Paul, getting wind, fog, and a little light mix of precipitation. There's a stronger front going to push through there. Southeast winds are at gale force this afternoon, and will hold up that way tonight and into the day on Tuesday. And then way out in the Panhandle, Central Panhandle Cape, a few isolated showers, rain showers or sprinkles. Skies are overcast, 50 degrees instead of 60. The really warm temperatures that were over the Panhandle have since gone away just due to the fact that warm big ridge of high pressure that was centered over northwest Canada has weakened considerably. And as I just mentioned, we have the full pink moon of April, and that occurs tomorrow afternoon at 4:49 p.m. So you'll be able to see this full moon in the sky tonight if you have clear to partly cloudy conditions. And again, it'll be just a few hours past full phase by the time we get into the nighttime here for tomorrow evening. Looking at the state map here regarding hazardous weather, do we have any advisories and warnings? The only place, at least as of right now, is St. Lawrence Island. Winter weather advisory for some snow and blowing snow that's going to be moving in there for tomorrow morning into midnight tomorrow night. Light accumulations of snow along with some blowing snow as well, because we're going to have some strong east-southeast winds ahead of this front that's going to be working its way through St. Paul tonight and then knocking on the door of the southwest coast by the time we get into tomorrow mid-morning, and then extending just south and southwest of St. Lawrence Island, but eventually getting up that way as well. Satellite imagery from last night and into at least mid-morning shows a few features of interest. Here's the low pressure in the North Pacific south of the Gulf. And then we have this wound up low out there in the western Aleutians, just south, the center of it, just south of Shemya. And then this occluded front arcing ahead of it. And it's a pretty good system, 970 millibar low for this time of year. We're still seeing some areas of sunshine, though a few more clouds across the central interior. Temperatures are not as warm as what they were last week or even over the weekend. As I mentioned, that was all going to kind of fade away for a while because that was a really nice stretch of spring weather. Many areas of the central eastern interior as well as Panhandle were able to get in on and enjoy. So today we have a dissipating cold front that's pushed in off the Canadian Arctic coast, thermal trough kind of just sitting here in northwest Canada. This is at the surface, and then we have low pressure in the northern Gulf, or I should say North Pacific, just south of the Gulf. And then here's that low down around 970 millibars in the western Aleutians with this occluded front wrapped around it. Triple point, as that works eastward, there'll be a weaker low develop along that by the time we get into later Tuesday and Wednesday. But looking late tonight into Tuesday morning, we have the low starting to fill a little bit, and the other low in the North Pacific weakening may spread enough moisture that some areas of the southern panhandle still could see a few light showers. It's also going to send a little lighter slug of moisture back toward the western Gulf, so there could be a few light showers along the Kenai Peninsula, the lower portion of Cook Inlet down to eastern and northern Kodiak Island. And then for Tuesday's weather, we have just a very weak area of high pressure up along south central, southeast areas, Copper River Basin, and the low out in the Aleutians, back down around 970 millibars, and it's got a pretty wound up front around it with this little secondary development, weaker low that's south of the Alaska Peninsula in the North Pacific, and then just a weak lagging trough here along the north slope that may keep some lower cloudiness and a few very light snow showers or flurries going. For Wednesday, we still have the low sitting out in the central Bering. Fronts have really washed out in just some troughs. This is kind of how it should shake out with the trough lingering along that old frontal boundary from just south of the Bering Strait along the southwest coast of Bristol Bay. And then that secondary low is just kind of sitting there southwest of the Gulf. And again, nothing too terribly exciting, but nevertheless, we're kind of in that transition period here. And we're hoping that we can start getting a little more consistently milder spring weather, and we'll take a look at that coming up here after I give you these temperatures. Lows tonight will generally be above freezing in the Panhandle, mid-30s to near 40 degrees. Also generally above freezing Anchorage down along coastal areas, but you get up a little further inland, readings dip below freezing, and then daytime highs with some sunshine. We're looking at 50s in the Panhandle, maybe back up around 60, Clawalk Craig, as well as up there at Skagway. And then 50, Copper River Basin, 50-ish around Anchorage, as long as the clouds can kind of clear out. 54 at Talkeetna, other side of the Alaska Range, 55 at McGrath, 45, Middleton Island down toward Kodiak City. Wednesday morning lows, again, should get dipped down back below freezing as you get out toward the Chugach and up here in Copper River Basin and Talkeetna. Back here through across the Panhandle, we're looking at lows again, mid-upper 30s most areas, and daytime highs 50s, but with some sunshine, 62. Again, up there at Skagway, Haines, that'll be some of the warmer temperatures in the Panhandle. And then elsewhere, 50 is very attainable. It just depends on how much sun you get, and if you get a little bit of a breeze off of any colder water, could keep temperatures in upper 40s, but generally 50 a pretty common reading, and maybe as warm as 57 then up to Talkeetna. But the cold air is residing up here. I mentioned earlier that New Exit was down to 13 below this morning. Should not be quite as cold up that way Tuesday morning, but I want to rule out a few spots down near or just below zero. And overall along the Yukon River Valley, temperatures will be dipping just below freezing again tonight. And then daytime highs getting back up into the 50s along the middle upper Yukon Valley and going up the Tanana Valley. You can see temperatures 57, 58 degrees around Fairbanks, 60 there at Eagle. Yesterday, Eagle had the state's high of 62. As we go to the far west, Savunga just 32 for a high, and we'll see readings near freezing along the western and northern coastline there of the Seward Peninsula. Come Wednesday morning, still some single digits, generally above zero there, the central Arctic coast and North Slope. Again, dipping down a bit below freezing across the Yukon Flats, but near or just below freezing as you go down along the Yukon River. And temperatures Wednesday afternoon could be back up around 60 or so in Fairbanks. So fairly typical, decent type of early spring temperatures as we round out April. You know, breakup season is not that far away. It's literally within the next probably 10 days or so. that things should start to happen in these upper areas of the Yukon, usually the first to go. And looking at the southwest interior, lows tonight dipping below freezing. We're going to have that front work its way across St. Paul, getting a snow maybe mixing with some rain before that precipitation tapers off tomorrow. And then that front will be pushing into Nunavik Island all the way on up along areas of the southwest coast, the YK deltas into Bethel by tomorrow afternoon and evening. And rather breezy conditions. You're going to have strong southeast winds ahead of that front. And then Tuesday afternoon, we expect temperatures southwest of the front to bump up, a little bit into the 40s along the Aleutians, 38 at St. Paul. Cloud cover precipitation keeping readings generally just below 40 there along the Yukon and Kuskokwim coast. But inland a little warmer, 55 there at McGrath with some sun. And Wednesday morning, we expect low temperatures to dip down near freezing there through Toland Strait and the outer portions, Hooper Bay area. But a little above freezing there across the Alaska Peninsula and down through the Aleutians. Wednesday afternoon, that front is just going to kind of wash out as a trough here. So if you're on the west side of it here along the coastal areas, it'll be cooler. But if you're ahead of it along the inland side, I expect temperatures in the 40s, even some 50s as you get further up along the west and north side of the Alaska Range, and then temperatures down along the eastern and central Aleutian should generally be in the lower 40s. Now here's the temperature outlook here, April 28th through the 2nd of May, so just as we transition out of April into May. And right now it's looking like temperatures are going to average a bit above normal here, south central, southeast mainland into the Panhandle. Part of the reason being we're going to see a little more progressive pattern. Low pressures working their way up out of the North Pacific into the Bering, especially the central lower Bering, and then coming up also out of the North Pacific into the Gulf. No big powerful storms, but still systems that'll keep the weather moving along. The reason we had such a long, prolonged stretch of warm weather over this region last week was we had this ridge of high pressure acting as a block. So these systems were not allowed to move quickly west to east. And it looks like we'll be in a little more progressive pattern where temperatures could average above normal across southern areas of the state, but below normal in the north, especially along the Arctic coast and the north slope. And then precipitation may average a little above normal, especially centered on areas of east central, which would imply maybe some moisture getting pulled up in off of the Gulf with one of those systems. But this time of year, though, is normally the driest time of year across Alaska. It doesn't mean we can't get a decent storm, but at this point, at least there is that possibility precipitation could average a little above normal here as we slide into the beginning of May.